It is my absolute honor, my privilege to welcome you to the Accenture Goodwill Joint International Women's Day celebration, where this year our theme is Be Without Limits. This is the spotlight, to remind us that of the limitless, the barrier-free, the unhindered opportunities that we can have to thrive. Be without limits means freedom. It means freedom to challenge orthodoxies. It means freedom to bring ideas to the table, to innovate. It means that we have the ability, the permission to dream big. All right, so what does it mean really to be without limits? Let's break it down just for a minute. Being without limits is dreaming without limits. That means dream so big that it scares us. Walking into places and spaces and roles that we never dreamed or we've been told we couldn't walk into. It means growing without limits. It means that not knowledge is power, but the potential of power, and we have the opportunity to unleash that potential every day. It means thriving without limits. It means that we have the ability to live without limits. Let this theme today, as you listen to our panelists talk, and while you're here and we're communing together, let it unify us in a way that it never has before. Because what being without limits means, it says that we define our destinies. It means that we are the captains of our ships. It means that there's room for all of us. It means that we can open the door and leave it open for all of us. It means that no matter where you are, where you came from, no matter what your zip code is, no matter what your race is, no matter how much money your mama made or your daddy made, or even if your daddy was there, it means that it does not matter. There is no limit to where you can go, to what you can be, period, with a T. Now, I'm not telling you about this because I read about it in a book somewhere. I'm telling you about it because I am that little poor black girl from abject poverty, and if you don't know the difference between abject poverty and poverty, ask somebody. That little black girl that was born to a drug-addicted teen mother, raised by grandparents with low literacy on public assistance. I'm telling you this because I was that girl, and today I stand before you a proud and humble, poor little black girl from Pensacola, Florida, that grew up to be a director on the Goodwill of North Georgia Board of Directors. Where every day we're committed to putting people to work, because all of us know that a job, a better job, a career is a pathway to a better life, a better community, and a better world. I stand before you as a managing director for Accenture, where we purposely combine technology and human ingenuity to help our clients manage change. And I get the distinct honor and pleasure and opportunity of leading our health and public service practice for Accenture Song in the South, where I'm so fortunate that every day I have the opportunity to wake up and work at the intersection of my Wharton School education that nobody thought I was ever going to get or should have had or was supposed to have, my 25-year professional experience at the center, the epicenter of my purpose, helping health organizations, states and local governments and higher education institutions and not-for-profit organizations deliver on their ambition to provide exceptional service and the optimal experience to all of their stakeholders. And I'm proud that I get to work for an organization that says what it's going to do and that does that believes the future workforce is an equal one. And we've set bold goals to accelerate gender equality. I'm proud that I get to work for an organization that acts on our commitments to gender equality in providing targeted support that provides flexible work arrangements, comprehensive training programs, right, and all the benefits that support our women in achieving their aspirations, not only professionally but personally. I'm proud that I work for an organization that supports community programs and initiatives that drive gender and equality, equal opportunity, not only in Atlanta, but around North America and around the globe. We're making progress against these bold goals to accelerate gender equality. And what I mean by that, we're working to achieve gender balanced workforce by 2025. And we didn't say it in secret, we said it in public, because when you say it in public, people hold you accountable, right? So we said it in public, and this means a workforce that is equally 50% women and 50% men balanced. We said we wanted to achieve 25% women managing directors by the end of 2020. We said that. We met that, and then we said bet, and then we set a new goal. So we changed that goal to 30% by 2025. And as of December 1st, 2024, women accounted for 40% of our global workforce, 47% of our global workforce, 32% of our executives, that's manager or above at Accenture. It accounts for 29% of our managing directors. We're already almost meeting that new goal that we just set because we are committed and we're intentional about what we say we're going to do in the service of making sure that we have equality with women. 25% of our global management committee are women. All women at Accenture are mentored and supported at every stage of their career. I have several personal mentees that I meet with throughout the week and on the weekends even. We partner with third-party organizations to make sure that we're providing the breadth and the depth of support that our women need. We provide flexible work, I said that, pay equity. And at our last review, which was the end of last year, we have dollar for dollar 100% pay equity within Accenture. I think that deserves a round of applause, so I'm gonna wait for that. So I'm so happy to welcome all of you. And I wanna thank you. I wanna thank you for prioritizing this time to celebrate each other, to celebrate women, to recognize our progress and how far that we've come and how far we're gonna continue to go. I thank you for your commitment to supporting gender equality. I thank you for being here to show up to support Being Without Limits. And I hope on this panel today and everything that you hear, that you walk away being reminded that we ain't got no limits. We ain't got no limits. So with that, I'm gonna finish because I'm about to preach here for him in a minute. But I'm loving it, and I'm loving seeing all of you. And what I'll do now, though, because my time is up, I'm gonna ask Keith Parker. Where are you, Keith? There's Keith, over there, one of the best dressed men in Goodwill of North Georgia. And Goodwill of North Georgia's CEO, and a wonderful example of a soldier of what is right, an ally, and someone that is committed to equity and equality. And committed to opportunity for everybody. So I present to you Keith Parker.
Good morning. I hope all of you are enjoying our beautiful facilities here at Goodwill. We moved into this building, I guess about 6 years ago, and I hope you've had a chance to go into the bathroom. Because we have an incredible group of talented folks who take care of this building, many of whom have significant disabilities. Most have more than one. But this is a place that we want to continue to look fantastic and spotless and be representative of who we are as an organization, that we work together as a team to keep our house looking good and producing fantastic things. At the end of this panel discussion, we'll be offering tours so you get to see how we do the things we do at Goodwill. There's a store next door as well as a career center where we help literally thousands of people move from a job to a better job and on to a career. That's our approach. So my job here this morning is to welcome you, to also say hello to all of our board members. Winnifer is one of my bosses, so even though she went a little long, I wasn't about to tell her that because, ultimately she gets a chance to say, hey, look, you got a job or you don't. But she's one of the great board members and leaders of our movement here at Goodwill of North Georgia. Also, Alison Blair, Alison is right here, another one of our board members. Michelle Jackson is next to her. And then a couple of folks I think either aren't here yet, but will be arriving a little bit later. Carol Waddy, who's an executive with Chick-fil-A, and Kirk Halpern, who is our senior member on the board, and he should be here any moment as well. Several other members of my team, my executive team, are here, so if they will stand, I see Bonnie Corrales. Bonnie, if you will, stand, please. And then I see Tim O'Connell and Jenny Taylor and Emily Carter, who put this together. She's the person who leads this, and Scott Perry, and then our liaison to the board and special projects person, Arwen Love, in the back. I hope I didn't miss anybody. And then all the members of my Goodwill team, please stand. Yay. So whenever I get in front of a group like this, I always ask two questions. How many of you have shopped at or donated to a Goodwill? All right. Who didn't? Well, let's make sure. But how many of you know what we do with the profits? It's always a smaller number. So we make magic happen. When you shop at or donate to a Goodwill, we take the profits from that transaction and proceed to do our mission, and that is to put people to work. And we're really, really good at helping people find jobs. We, over the last 5 years, have helped right around 100,000 people, North Georgians, find jobs. But that's not enough. So thanks for the clapping, but that's not enough. When I started a little more than 5 years ago, and the board presented to me some good numbers, and they said, we helped so many people find positions. I said, well, I'm really not all that interested in helping move people from unemployed poverty to employed poverty, which is what we were doing. We were moving people from unemployment into mostly minimum wage type jobs, and that's where they would stay. So we challenged our team, and every member of the Goodwill family is judged on this. Every single one, their paychecks are impacted by the number of people we help find jobs and the number of people we move into the middle class. So when I started, 16% of that big chunk of people who were moving from unemployment to employment were being moved into middle class, working class type positions. Today, that number is almost 80%. So we are moving the needle and helping people find great work. So it's my honor to introduce this great panel. I've served on this panel the last few years, and then they said, no, we're upgrading this year, so we're going to get a better group of folks. But a fantastic group. Amy Phuong, Vice President, Government Relations for the Atlanta Hawks and the State Farm Arena. Amy, if you will wave. Erica Bolden, Head of DEI and People Analytics for Mercedes-Benz USA. Alison Rand, Executive Vice President and CFO of Primerica. Veronica Lightburn, North American ServiceNow Training Coordinator at Accenture and a Goodwill graduate, who she's going to tell you her story. And Huiming Q, Vice President of Data Science and E-commerce and Marketing at the Home Depot. And my closest bud of this entire group, a lady who has been interviewing me, I think, for 10 years now. I started out at this little bus company called MARTA about 10 years ago. And Rose started interviewing me from almost the first day about the things we were trying to accomplish there, and she's continued that, and we've had this fantastic partnership. So Rose Scott, NPR fame, WABE, needs no real introduction except to say she asks the tough questions and gives you a chance to answer them. So Rose Scott, the show is yours.
Good morning. Thank you, Keith. And for 10 years, I've been still waiting on my free MARTA card and my, now that he's at Goodwill, I'm still waiting on those bookshelves, brother. But, you know, still waiting on them. Good morning, and thank you again to Keith and his entire staff for allowing me just to play a small part in this. Every year, I'm always excited to join. It's funny because Keith, you know, I've known him for a few years now, and he sends me a text this morning. Instead of just saying, hey, are you close? He's, good morning, Rose. We're so excited that you're coming. Where you at? Pretty much. I'm like, dude, I live in Old Fourth Ward. Traffic, I'm coming. But no, it's always a pleasure to be able to participate in a community event. And as I was telling folks earlier this morning, often I say no more than I say yes because I can't be anywhere. But if it's an organization that is doing good to help people, doing good things to help folks, then I'll always make room to be there. And don't worry, I'm not taking a day off because when I leave here, I got to go right back to the station. There's a lot of news breaking. So I want to open up this discussion with the panel because when we heard from the pastor earlier about, should have got a collection plate. I was ready to give my $2. When we talk about be without limits, I want to ask the panel just to take a moment to reflect on what that means personally to you all when we talk about be without limits. And so I'm going to start with Huiming. What does that mean to you?
It means I don't think you. If I go back to some of the heartwarming, the speech, it really moves me. I think about myself. I came here 20 years ago as a grad student, and I got a lot of help from the donations. I get my bed, like literally it's a room of nothing. I got my bed, my dinnerwares, and everything that I got actually is from the donations. And my parents never imagined that I'm going to be sitting here working for the largest home improvement retailers and doing what I'm dreaming to do. Like they told me that I just want to become a scientist. But the limit is, I don't think anyone has a limit in their mind, although we're probably informed by how we grew up, what my parents is, what my sisters is, and what people surrounding you sort of give you a image of that's likely where you wanted to be or where you're likely going to be. That's implicit limit to me. And I would say that not only don't have any explicit limits, break those implicit limits as well, and just be like maybe the people that you've never met, maybe like be the one that you never imagined. And that's, I think, why I got here, and that's what I tell my kids as well.
Yeah. Veronica.
Being without limits. I think being without limits means pushing past that fear, pushing past that imposter syndrome, pushing past that little voice in your head saying you can't do it. And for me personally, I felt that all the time. I felt, okay, I don't have a degree. I felt I don't have X, Y, and Z, but I didn't look at what I did have. So to me, it's pushing past that fear, pushing past whatever you feel as if is going to limit you. It's not. There are no limits. So I think it's really leaning into yourself and following what you believe you can do, because you can do it. Whatever it is, you can.
Leaning into yourself, I like that. Allison?
Yeah, it's interesting. When Winnifer was speaking, I kept thinking...
Pastor Winnifer.
Pastor Winnifer,
Yeah.
sorry. I kept thinking that she's describing all these limits we face throughout our careers, and I'm like, what limits? And I don't mean that to be flippant. I mean it that I sort of went through, I was the youngest of 4 kids. I went away to a college where it had 50,000 people. I knew absolutely nobody. So from day one, I always sort of dropped myself in the boiling water. And I think, and I'm so excited to say this, I announced my retirement yesterday. So being at this stage, yeah, I know, yay. But being at this stage of my career, I'm looking back. I'm doing a lot of looking back. And the limits are the limits you place on yourself, okay? Because people said this limit in my career. I said, I didn't have those limits. I did, but I didn't see them. So I think the better we can get, and I hate to say put the blinders on, but the better you can get at not letting those limits take over your mentality, the stronger you're going to be. I am in a predominantly male role. When my company went public, I was the lady who wore the stilettos. That's how I got known. And people would always judge me as somebody who was just in the room. And they'd start asking those questions, and you start spitting out those answers, and you show your confidence. And if you have confidence in yourself, there are no limits. So in my mind, you control the limits yourself, and your own confidence and your self-worth and your own brand you create in your own mind is what gets you past them.
All right, thank you. Erica?
Yeah, for me, I would say it's pushing beyond the perception of what others think that you can or cannot do, right? So if I think about my ancestors, female ancestors, people of color, the things that they legally could not do, but they pursued and did it anyway, right? And that constant question of asking why not. It's not that way right now. Why is that? Why is it so, right? It doesn't have to be that way. Everything moves forward because at some point someone said, well, why not? And let's do it anyway. So continuing to push beyond those boundaries that that people are placing on you, and often in a way that is malicious or unfair. So continuing to push beyond that.
All right, thank you. Amy?
I'll give a personal story of, at the start of the pandemic, I lost my father, and I was able to go through his stuff because, of course, we were locked down and we weren't going anywhere, and my father kept a bunch of stuff. And so I recall, as I was shifting through everything he basically kept, I saw an income statement for my mother when she, they immigrated right before I was born, and so I got to see how much she made. A couple of years as she after she immigrated here to the States, and for that year, it was like 1983. She made $2,000 total for the year. And it just dawned on me. I was like, oh my gosh, for my parents who immigrated here coming from nothing, and literally the statement of $2,000 on an annual basis, and here I am, just one generation later, to be able to achieve the success. The second thing that I found was a letter that my father wrote to his employer at the time of he had to resign because he needed to find better employment to be able to sustain his family of 5. And the letter was from a restaurant that happened to be the restaurant at the bottom of the building that I was working in of Peachtree Center. And here I was, just exiting the city of Atlanta as commissioner, having to been, the office of the floor, several floors up. And so that moment of recognizing both literally and figuratively how far we've come. And then from that moment, I both became significantly more appreciative of all the successes and recognizing of how I got to those successes. And my ability to break the limits was both the things that I didn't really quite fully appreciate and understand, but all of the kind of other supports, including family and mentors, to break those limits.
All right, thank you. Amy, I want to stay with you for a second, because when we talk about limits, there are sometimes limits that we can't control, like a pandemic. And so I want to shift a little bit and talk about how you all have been, and now people say, oh, we're post-pandemic, things have returned to normal, and I guess depending on how you look at that, you don't want some things to return to normal. But I want to talk about how you all balance this disruption of the pandemic in between your life and your work, and we always hear that, well, women, they're so resilient. And I used to think that was cool, because I used to always say that about black women. I'm like, why do we have to be resilient? We should have the same access. We shouldn't have to work harder just because we're black women. So I purposely said I'm not going to use that word, and I used it, damn. But can I say that, Keith? I said the D word. So I want to talk about how you all have balanced this past disruption with the pandemic in your life and work. And Amy, I'll let you take it.
I was very fortunate that at the start of the pandemic, we didn't quite know what was going on at the Atlanta Hawks, but on the first all-staff call, our owner, Tony Ressler, said, everybody. We're keeping everybody on board. And so, because we're in the live entertainment business. And so he made that commitment. And at that moment, there was so much relief across all the team members of saying, okay, if I can just focus on trying to balance the family stuff and the work obligations. And what that really led to was an ability to, at the time I was also expecting, I was becoming a mother. I got to really kind of, sit there, get ready for that experience, but also then dive fully in and being committed to my employer who made the commitment that everybody was going to stay on board. And what was birthed out of that was an ability when we saw what was happening with voting and everything else to be able to open the arena up to host voting for the 2020 elections. And in my position, I played a really vital role in that, in ensuring that we were following all the state and federal election laws, and then making an experience so that when if you voted in the State Farm Arena, you had a seamless and very good experience. And so that alone, kind of helped me in grounding me and seeing a big kind of commitment that our team was making to both our employees and to our community, and doing something that we had never done before, and leveraging our skills and expertise. And so that really made us more resilient. And then coming out of it, because we were able to keep everybody employed, we were able to kind of bounce back as best as possible. We still lost folks just naturally of just the high demand of talent in the war of talent, but we were able, because we made that commitment, retain as much as we could.
All right, thank you. Erica?
Yeah. So I'll say I didn't necessarily do the best job. It was one of those, what they say, put the oxygen mask on first. So being in the space of DEI, for those of you who may not be familiar, that was a very, very hot area. I mean, it good and bad, right? Headhunters in my inbox probably 4 times each week. But, really taking that break where I knew where a lot of companies were reeling back from spend. Usually that's the first one to have budget cuts, headcount reductions, but I knew that was a time to actually double down. So I work for a German company, DEI. Okay, right? So I would say, no E, a little bit of I. From German standpoint, diversity really is based on gender. From data privacy law perspective, they don't do things like track race and ethnicity, but I work for Mercedes-Benz USA, so it's important to do that here. I moved into the role 4 years ago, moving to Atlanta for the role. We never had anything in writing to even say, what is our position when it comes to DEI? You had all of these companies where X person was fired due to their egregious behavior, wasn't in alignment with our values, and I said, well, if that happened here, who's to say what those values are, right? So putting that in writing, demonstrating to our employees for the first time, having formal DEI education, because I didn't want to give anyone the excuse to say they did not know, creating that baseline. You may not agree, but at least when I'm talking about these things, you know what it is, and we're in alignment and on the same page, having that integrated into the company bonus payout, their actual participation and completion of that, rolling out for the first time KPIs, data, having the aspirations. We are private, so we have not publicly disclosed what those are. However, we're on our way. And Germany, they've said that they want to have, by 2030, for example, 30% female leadership. I said, okay, well, we're going to do that at the end of 2022. So really pushing forward to say what that is, what it looks, what it means. Yes, we're a luxury brand. Some people during that time taking it to the streets, right, to give it back. I took it to the boardroom. We're a luxury brand. However, we are a very visible citizen in the community. So during the pandemic, we weren't using our office space, so refashioning that cafeteria so that we could keep our cafeteria workers employed, and they were doing meals, and we donated those to the communities, right? So Open Hand, Second Hand Atlanta, donating Sprinter vans to Meals on Wheels Atlanta so that they could double their meal delivery services. So identifying the ways to give back, and I agree, resiliency, that's often worn as a badge of honor when it doesn't necessarily need to be. It is taking those breaks. You know what? It's Sunday. I'm going to be on the couch eating Cheez-Its today. That's it. That is self-care to me. And so I've had to really take a pause and learn, what does that look like? What does that mean? And it's okay to not keep, push. But I would say, that's a lot of the things that happened during the pandemic for me professionally gave me a lot of tailwind to make the progress and to demonstrate that this isn't going into the non-essential bucket. This DEI work, this equity component, that's something that is here to stay, and it needs to be increased rather than reeled back.
Alison,
Sure.
balancing all of this?
And we keep hearing the word resilience, so the word I would use, especially for that period, was recalibration. So, and you always have to look at things in the positive, and there was a lot of negative. I worked for a life insurance company, there was a lot of negative during that period. But it forced me, and I think it forced most people, to recalibrate their lives. Okay, so, how much do you give to the work? How much do you give to the family? I suddenly had my college-age kids home at the dinner table again. Never thought that was going to happen. I spent lunch with my husband. Never had done that. I'm not sure I even like doing that. Anyway, but, and then within the profession, what I found, at least in the role that I have, in a leadership role, was putting forth a vision for others, men and women, to be able to say, you need to calibrate your lives. Okay, you're sitting in your home is now your office. You need to figure out a way to say, at some point during the day, this space is no longer my office, it's now back to being my home. Because what we found when everybody said when people work from home, they're not gonna do anything, we found they worked nonstop. And they were exhausting themselves, and it wasn't because we were demanding it, it's just, it's here. So I would do coffee breaks with my team, and I would just have a random group, I'd invite 20 people at a time to a Zoom, and it was not business at all, it was, hey, how you doing? How do you separate your day? How are you managing to take care of your dog and your kid? Of course, you bought a new dog because you're staying at home all the time. But, and it was just open communication, and I made sure to do it with people at very different levels in the organization, people that didn't work with each other regularly. So, because the biggest thing that was happening, Primerica is a place, I've been there 28 years. Believe it or not, I'm the third newest person on the 4-person executive team, and I've been there 28 years. So making sure we were maintaining what made us special, which was those relationships, and especially for all the people that were coming in and weren't getting exposed to it. So I think our organization, I think myself, and I think my team, because it's what I sort of tried to instill in them, did a great job of fostering the importance of the relationship, the importance of self, the importance of saying, okay, this is my opportunity to say, where am I devoting my time? You made a comment about, saying yes and no to things. I found I was saying yes to way too many things. It was an opportunity to start saying, that's a no now. And not, it just, because sometimes you have to realize you have to figure out the priorities, and they're not the same every day. And I think the recalibration and the resilience all comes back to also knowing that, at one time of the year, you're heavy involved with work because you've got something major going on, and it's okay then to say, this time of year when it's a little bit slower, I'm gonna focus on my kids, I'm gonna focus on my community, I'm gonna focus on my faith, whatever it may be. And so I think recalibration is the one blessing I got out of COVID.
Veronica?
So, I graduated from the Goodwill Accenture program cohort in December of 2019.
Oh, wow.
I started at Accenture January 8th of 2020. COVID hit February of 2020. So the word was frantic. As a few of us from Accenture know, I was on the bench. And on the bench means no project, no client, no work. And I said, okay, I have this new role. I'm coming from customer service. I have nothing to do. So I said, man, I got a job and they're gonna let me go. I just got here. But I was blessed to have an amazing team that instilled in me, cared for me, lots of fun happy hours. Accenture has the best virtual happy hours. It was a time where my team let me know your talents will be preserved. And I worried, and I cried, and I prayed, and I was able to get a role. I was able to get a permanent role. I was the service now training coordinator for about 2.5 years, and I loved that. That time really just showed me that Accenture loves us, and I can say that because it's true. Mm-hmm. And that time was a very fragile time for a lot of us recent grads to come with no prior experience, no college degree. Well, for me, I felt safe, and that's rare, and I appreciate Accenture for that. And again, I appreciate them for the happy hours. But all in all, I can say it was a very frantic time, but Accenture made me feel safe.
Mm. Wow. Huiming?
Oh, Alison, you talk about resilience and perseverance. Mm-hmm. I think 2020 is the year I was reborn. And I didn't appreciate at the time, but I do appreciate the opportunities to get reborn. So if I roll back to the very beginning of 2020, in February, hear me out. So my in-laws moved out of the house, and because my in-laws, my parents, as Asian family, when we have kids, they basically come every 6 months, and so I always have actually a set of parents in the house. And obviously there's good things about this. I don't need to cook and clean, and I'm being a kid. My kitchen is not my kitchen. I don't know where things are, but I don't care whether they throw things out. And but obviously there's the other side of you have a parents, right? That I'm not teaching the kids, because they're the head of the household. But they moved out, and I suppose my parents will be moving in. But obviously in February, as you know, that I came from China, there's already a breakout in China. So the lockdown is already happening, and they're worried about me. And it's like, don't worry, it's not here. And in March, I got a call. This is one of those calls that, why is my family calling at this hour? Because they're a 12-hour difference. And then my phone dropped on the floor because my mom is in the ICU, and I know at the time that they couldn't get to her. Even the ambulance took 5 hours to get her into, because there's just all the roadblocks, and they couldn't get into security. They couldn't get her out from the apartment. And when they got to the hospital, they couldn't get blood approved. The hospital, the doctors are not there because they're supporting the COVID centralized hospital. So all the delays that she's there, this is March 10th, she stayed there for 10 days. But during that time, I was on the phone with my family all the night, because it's 12 hours difference. During the day, Will got back, and my little one, I have 2 boys. My little one, at the time, was 5-year-old. He got this extreme high fever. My husband at the time, he's already moved out of the house, and then he visited back to take care of, because my son's passport expired, and there's all of these things, as a parent, that we both need to be there to renew his passport, because every summer we go back to China. I mean, it's all, we don't know, the world has changed back then. So, but he's so angry at my kids all of these details, it was so vivid in my mind, because that was the starting point of, I didn't know what's gonna be happening to me with the world changing. And my son has high fever. He was so frustrated that he doesn't want to take a good smiling picture. And he cursed and then left the house. So for the year, I haven't seen him. But then what's happening is I'm dealing with my mom being in the hospital, don't know what's going on. The workspace, we all shifted back to working from home, and I have a huge team that I'm taking care of. I need to make sure that they're calm. And my son has high fever. I was actually getting him to Emory, and on the way back, the teacher sent an email that the school will be out. We'll go back. You need to fetch the kids, the stuff, and then it was the world is swirling, and I said, calm down, you're the mom. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be here if anyone has left the house. And I'm glad that my in-laws actually went back to China. And I'm actually glad at the time my husband was not in the house because I don't need to deal with another thing that.
Yeah.
But after March 17th, I have the ticket that I was about to travel back because I don't know what's happening. But then I have to cancel the ticket, knowing I wouldn't be there. That has changed. That's the moment that has changed me. And I realize how important it is for you, every minute you're spending with your kids, with your parents, with your brothers and sisters, the people that you love, people that care about you. I was a recovered alcoholic, I would say, and I put so much emphasis on things that, that at the time actually really give you the fulfillment, right? But that totally flipped me. And then I was reevaluating my husband at the time, now is my ex. And it was a great decision. It was a decision that I made also for my mom because she cared about me so much. She left me so many notes about how you should be thinking about life. I'll be honest, it was a voice notes, and I heard actually at the time only 1/3 of them because she said so many. It was, but now I go back to listen all the time, and she taught me that I need to be responsible for myself now. Like she was like she's making decisions and I cared about it. It's like, don't tell me how to live my life. And then I realized I was so lucky. Someone cared me so much and wanted to support me that way. Wanted to just want me to do the right thing for myself. And then I finally stand up. I said, I need to have a divorce. I need to make sure that I am taking care of the family and taking care of the people that I love. I don't need to spend another minute wasting my life. And the process is very tough. I didn't work that much, and I realized that in that process, I thought I'm gonna get fired. And then just before I get my paper finalized, and my boss told me I got promoted. Because you are being a better leader now, because it's not about you working so hard, it's about actually you being the person that you can take care of the team and move forward together. I think I just learned so many things through the experience that you need to take care of yourself, take care of your loved ones, and there is a way of doing things that's not always the most productive way. There's probably a process to get through those challenging times, and I always go back and really appreciate. And as you mentioned about why do we have to have that perseverance? I questioned, why is it me? Why at that time that I lost the person who loved me the most unconditionally, and that I didn't even realize. Now I have a new way of, I think, spending time with her, remembering her, being with her. I cook the food that she loves, and I try to, carry that, some of the tradition that she always have that I didn't care at the time as a family. I think it taught me so much. I do appreciate those experiences, and I know this. I hope none of things, some of the challenges happen in your life, but if it happened already, if things that you couldn't change, I do think embracing it is not that bad. You will come back, bounce much higher, and there will be people actually recognizing your effort, and there will be people, especially who loved you, will be there to support you.
Show of hands, how many of you out there feel like you were either reborn or recalibrated after this pandemic and you changed how you do things for yourself? You put yourself first? Yeah. I gotta tell you, I'm gonna move on in a moment, but I never thought virtual yoga would change my life. I don't even know if I told Keith this, but so I lost my brother at the end of 2019 to a drug overdose. Then 5 months later, my sister died of cancer. I lost my great uncle. I lost 3 very good girlfriends. I had to put both my cats down because I had to move out of the condo I was renting because the owners sold it and told me like, hey, guess what? We just got a buyer. And I'm like, all this happened at the end of 2019 to the middle of 2021. And I was working, going into work every day, covering the pandemic, covering a very polarizing political time, social unrest, racial justice, all of that. And I am still here, and I do not know how I made it, but I do want to thank a very small core of girlfriends, and that's what we're going to get to next, is having a support system. Because Gigi and Aisha and Chandra and Ashanti, those were they kept me lifted. And you have to have a support system, and it is so important. So they're not here, but I thank them. And when I realized that I was not taking care of myself, Gigi sent me a fruit bouquet. And I opened the door, and there was a delivery, and I just broke down crying because it was such a small gesture, but it meant so much to me because I couldn't go home to see my parents, my family, because of COVID. So I didn't go to my brother's funeral or my sister's. I couldn't. And that was just, and so, yeah, so reborn, you are right about that, sister. So let's talk about support systems and how you know when it's time to necessarily disconnect, if you want to call it disconnect, but if you're a leader too, you're in a leadership position, because often how women are viewed in leadership positions and how they deal with some type of change or perseverance, it's viewed differently than with men. Let's just be really clear about that. So, and I'll start with you. I want to start with Alison because you just retired. So.
Well, I have another year.
You have another year.
Announced it
Okay.
publicly.
So, well, when you look back to all the decades you've been working, when you had to take a break, did you have support from your company?
Oh, incredible. So this isn't supposed to be a promotion about Primerica, but I will tell you, Primerica, it's funny, people are talking about gender diversity. Gender diversity is absolutely not an issue at Primerica. And I don't know if it's because I've been a leader, a female leader, but we have lots of strong female leaders. We have other issues we deal with diversity, but gender is not one of them. And I want to say I had a piece to do with that because I created that culture and I tried to lead by example, but I also have to give a lot of credit for the team I work with and their willingness to sort of look past what would be normally a gender definition. I tell this story a lot, and one of the things women aren't very good at is dividing and conquering. We're like usually our own worst enemies if you think about it. We put all these pressures on us. My comment before about saying yes to everything. So I have twins, and when they were young, they were in kindergarten. They had 2 separate classes, and I volunteered to be the class mom for both classes. I was the only working mom, okay? And then of course, I had to make the best snacks of anybody. And I tell this story all the time because my daughter saw that I bought Oreos, and she loved Oreos. She's like, great, you're bringing Oreos. She's 5. And then I spent the next 6 hours turning these Oreos into these chocolate covered, they had monkey faces on them, like 8 different colors. They were spectacular. And all the moms were like, this is great. And then the next day, my daughter goes, where are the Oreos? I go, oh, they're right there. She goes, I just wanted an Oreo. And honestly, a 5-year-old got me to open my eyes. And I said, we do these things. We take on so many commitments. We try to be the absolute best at everything, and then you're not really good at anything. And so that was a defining moment for me. And I realized that the only way I was going to be successful and lead a successful group was if I got my act together. And my act together meant, 1, learning how to delegate. I will put, my tagline is, I am an excellent delegator. You ask anybody that works with me. I know what I'm the best at, and I know what they're the best at. And if they're the best at it, they get to do it. And come see me when you need me. I'm not available. But you gotta let everybody else thrive. And so we all feel like we gotta make sure it's all done all the time. And I think women do this more than men. So learning how to rely on other people, trust other people in the workforce is critical. It's the only way you can excel. I've been able to become a greater version of me by at the same time allowing other people to become greater versions of them. And it's been spectacular. And that's the hard part at work. In your personal life, if you're not surrounded by people who are gonna have your back, like Gigi and Aisha and whoever, get rid of them. I mean, seriously, I mean, we have all had friends that are baggage. Get rid of them. So it's knowing, it's deciphering what you need and what you don't need, and then really embracing it and giving back to them as well, making sure they have the opportunity to grow as you're growing.
Purge your friends.
I've purged a few,
I have too.
absolutely. I've purged more friends than employees, I can tell you that. So.
Huiming, actually, I'm sorry, I'm going to go to Amy. Amy, you know, Alison talked about, she had a great support system at work with the Atlanta Hawks, and I imagine that you, obviously, there, and I could be wrong, you tell me, perhaps it is more males work in there, I don't know, but when it comes to you needing support from your organization, whether it's personal or for a professional reason, you feel like you've had that with the Atlanta Hawks? And if not, how have you worked through that?
We actually, even though we're very male dominated, we're actually one of the top NBA teams that have women in executive leadership. I think we're in like top 2 or 3. And so we actually really champion very diverse executive leadership and workforce. And I think in many ways, even before the pandemic, our executive leadership really recognized the balance in the seasons of which we work. And so I say that because we are a seasonal business. Our season generally starts in October, and hopeful if we get to the playoffs, we go through the summer and then we take a break. And in those off-season moments, our leadership, we try to extend celebrations, we try to extend just time off to go back, because when you're in season, you're busy, and it could be back-to-back events that we're putting on for our fans. And as we become more successful, we have more fans, and as we become more successful, we have more events. And so I say all that to say, you know, it's a life metaphor in the sense of how our leadership then translates and say, you know, some seasons, you really do need to, it's okay to drop a couple things as long as in totality you're accomplishing what you're required to accomplish for the work that you're doing. And it's hard to recognize for yourself the season that you might be in. And so, you know, for a long time, especially when I was working at the city of Atlanta, I was in a crazy season. It was like nonstop, and there was fires everywhere. And I had to like literally do a break and slam everything down just to and like take a physical break from everything, because I was so out of balance. And so when I entered into the Hawks, I basically told myself I couldn't do that again, and I was going to be better about protecting myself. And I chose and went after an employer that would give me that. It was very fortunate to be able to do that. And as I've had different seasons now, as being a mother and balancing all the different things, my employer has been extremely flexible in that. And I think that's what also the pandemic taught was, you know, if you're on Zoom trying to help your kids learn, it is what it is, and do that, because you're going to be a better employee if you could take that off your plate and focus when you can.
Thank you. Veronica, what about you? Has Mercedes-Benz been kind to you? I'm sorry, I mean Erica.
Yes. Kind, and as in that Benz is parked out in the lot. Yes, I would say they're kind. You know, with the support, so my mother, she'll be 78 this month, so that story was so beautiful. I'm going to ask her to leave me some voice notes now. I love it. We're doing a little Golden Girls thing. She lives with me, and it's wonderful. So I always look at her, because I do all of this for her, and it makes me feel so happy I can take care of her. But I would say she propels me a lot. She does give me that support, that upliftment. It's also critical to go to other DEI practitioners who understand, because there is no one else. It's me within MBUSA, and then even outside of Mercedes-Benz, it looks very different. I think it is that pressure to take everything on my shoulders because I'm the one who sets the bar. They have no really expectations coming into the role as far as what it should look like, what I should be doing. I come from actually the professional services world, consulting firms. I came in with my project plans, and they're like, oh, well, yeah, if we can get the business resource groups together. And I'm just like, what about the data? What about the policies, right? So realizing that it's not just I let them know pretty quickly, I'm not here to plan Taco Tuesday. We're actually going to get started with making some change here, right? This is change management. So that's very important work, but at the same time, the people who, they want to see the fun stuff and they have no idea the conversations behind the scenes and the change that's actually happening, and you're trying to balance and do a little bit of everything. So making sure that I have that support group, the DEI practitioners who understand just how difficult it is to impact change, whether it be from a social justice perspective, from an equity standpoint, or even just recruiting so that you have that visible diversity. And then with your friends, right? Your sister circle, just checking in on everyone. I am more introverted, so because I am spending the bulk of my days interfacing with people, that kind of impacted some of my friendships because the little bit of time I had, I didn't want to give to them. It was Erica time. So it is kind of striking that balance and juggling, and I think that's another interesting dynamic of being women. We have all of these relationships that we try to juggle and maintain that are so critical, where we sometimes forget about ourselves. So definitely, I would say that time was actually kind of reforming a friendship with myself as well.
Veronica, what about you? You feel you are supported within, I feel like I know what you're going to say, but.
My support, well, the Accenture support is everlasting. The Goodwill support is everlasting, and I'm so very grateful for that. I don't mean to put anyone on the spot, but if I invited you in my personal life and you attended, can you please raise your hand? I mean, my support system is, it's so heartwarming. It's real love and it's genuine. And everyone who raised their hand know that for me, it's mutual. I'm truly, truly blessed to say that I have so many people supporting me and behind me, but so many women who love me, who care about me, who invest in me. I also have quite a few mentors in here as well. There's one right now, as well as Winnifer. The support is everlasting, and I'm truly, truly grateful. And to be blessed enough to have my parents sitting out front. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad.
Wait, where's Mom at? Where are they?
Right here.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Hi. Those are my parents.
Look at your baby up here.
They've supported me through thick and thin, and it got thick. College was rough. But they always supported me, looked out for me, cared for me, listened to me cry, listened to me whine, listened to me beg for food. They've always been there, and I just kudos to everyone who came to support me, everyone who came to support anyone on this panel. Just thank you, because you all are our support systems, and we love you, and we care about you, and we need you. So I'm just gonna go ahead and give you all a clap, because you all deserve it, truly.
Huiming, I want to get this question to you because I have another question that I want to end on. But now it's time to talk about paying it forward and mentoring. And I want, again, this is a question for the audience. I know y'all didn't expect to be part of it, but you know me. How many of you have had a female mentor, someone that's helped you along in your, yeah? How many of you have not, did not? All right. The person, I think, is that orange you're wearing or salmon? Stand up for a second. What is that? You said, so no, there's been no.
I don't really feel like I have a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the stuff that I have to do, I have to learn on my own.
Mm-hmm.
Coming up through the ranks, and I do the odd way for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what, if I had a mentor, somebody guiding me, it could have been easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for sharing, too. Huiming, I'm going to create a scenario. a young employee, woman, comes to you, she says, can you give me, what do I need to do to get to where you are? What advice would you, how can I get to where you are? What are you going to tell her?
I think there's a saying that enjoy what you do or do the thing that you enjoy.
Yeah.
So it's really, I never set the goal of getting to where I am, and I want to enjoy what I do, and I thought when I first joined Home Depot, I was not doing a good job because my boss doesn't care about that much. And then at the end of the year, he was like, you're exceptional because you did this thing that I never asked, and we did the first year that created a $5 million product, and then the next year was $75 million, and the next year was adding another digit on top of it. But it's all because I am actually doing things that I love to do, and I had a group of people who actually enjoy doing the same thing that I love, and it's just do the things that you love, or enjoy the things that you do.
Makes sense. Veronica?
Giving advice to someone reaching out to me. I would simply say, go for it. Whatever it is, just go for it. It might seem impossible. It might seem like it's not reachable, but they would have someone to call. And my friends know. My friends call me. They call, they email, they text, and I'm always that person to walk them through it, calm them down, or to let them know this transition can be done. It's really just reminding them that whatever limits that are there aren't there, and they would have a genuine person there to support them. Like my support system supports me. It'll be mutual.
All right. Alison?
Sure. Two things. One is it's okay to fail. And people are very afraid of failure, and it holds them back. It's okay to fail, but two things about failure. You got to recognize it pretty fast. Don't let it linger. So recognize when you have failed, and don't make the same mistake twice. So if you can fail, but follow those two things after it, you're going to be stronger for it, and often rewarded for at least taking the step to try something. The other thing, and this is probably one of my biggest things, and it happens, I think, with women more than men. If you get invited to a meeting, if you've been given a seat at the table, take advantage of it. Okay, you might be in a room with people who are more senior than you, but if you've been invited, you need to participate. And the worst thing is when people come and they just don't take advantage of this golden opportunity. Ask the question. You don't understand what somebody just said? You don't look stupid, you look inquisitive. Make sure you understand the topic, and if you have that table, you've been asked to see it at the table, use your voice.
Thank you. Veronica? I'm sorry, I'm Alison. Excuse me,
Emily.
No, another
Erica.
Erica.
So, it's fine. It's fine. We're going to be including everyone here. To be intentional, I would say that, and really being bold to push yourself out of, again, any self-imposed box or any box that might have been placed on you. And I would say it's identifying the value. Some of that value is going to be extrinsic, right? So it's coming from the outside space, what people think that you can do, but really identifying what internal to you, those intrinsic motivators, that ultimately is what's going to continue to propel you, right? So I've moved 3 times to cities where I didn't have an established support system, if you will. It's making the decisions, I have to do this in order to grow. And then those relationships are critical. It sounds so super cliche, but it really is not who you know. It's not what you know. It's who knows what you know, right? So I think that absolutely is important, being in that meeting room, right? But if you have a seat, make sure you have a voice. One of the things that it's kind of, knowing a little bit about everything. So one of the things I'm trying to break that habit, but before I go to bed, because it's impacting sleep, that's the other thing about women, right? Our brains are always going, melatonin has become my best friend, just to take a break and shut it off. But just knowing what's happening in the world, doing a scan of headlines at night. I do the same thing in the day. So that way you're able to insert yourselves into conversations and not being bashful. So don't tiptoe, right? You are here for a reason. You have a voice, you have a presence, you have a perspective. All of that is absolutely valued. And so you're able to ramp up your credibility when you're able to insert yourself into conversations. So if you're invited to something after work, it's a happy hour. You don't have to drink alcohol. That is an extension of work. That's how you build those relationships. It's how you are afforded opportunities. You're invited into things. So kind of shifting your perspective on what some of those extracurricular things are, that's how you're able to build those relationships as well. But then also don't discount men. I mean, it is important to have that sisterhood. I will say it's very important to think about the intersectionality of that sisterhood, though, right? So if we're thinking about from a diversity perspective when it comes to gender and knowing that, yes, you have female, but then you also have female, you have women of color, right? You're looking at intersections of ability. You're looking at sexual orientation. You're looking at age. You're looking at educational background. Are you a parent or caretaker? There are all of these different aspects. So if one segment of that sisterhood has succeeded, but the others haven't, then collectively we still have a ways to go to remember that. But then again, to my point, don't discount men. They oftentimes are the decision makers. They're the ones that yield authority. You do have a lot of change agents in that male populace, so lean on them. They're here to guide and help, and anytime you have that relationship, it's mutually beneficial, so it should be reciprocal, right? So identifying what you can contribute to that relationship. So if you have a mentor, and I always tell people, like, just don't say, I need a mentor. Don't stop there. This is the perspective that I can add, right? If you're thinking about having a mentor who is a senior leader, sometimes that perspective is far off. They lose sight of the day-to-day. What is it like being entry level, or what is it like raising young children? Think about what it is that you can contribute to that relationship so that it's not just a give, but it's a give-take.
Good advice there. Amy?
I think about my first job that I got. I was working at a Baskin-Robbins for $4.75 an hour, and I was really young, but I wanted to prove myself, and so I did everything that I could possibly do in the store. I was willing to, mop the floors, of course, greet the guests, serve the guests, and then eventually learning how to run, that particular store, so that my boss would, oftentimes, leave me at the store on my own. And I take that experience to say, I'm not above, now in my roles as I've continued to progress to doing what is necessary to get things done. But at the same time, as in the progression of my career, I recognize what I naturally gravitate towards and what I'm becoming an expert in. And so, while right now I'm working on a basketball team, I actually played basketball in middle school, but I'm not necessarily good enough to be on the floor of the for the basketball team. But I do recognize that my unique skill set has been able to translate very, very wonky policy into implementation, into layman terms. And so over the course of my career, that's where I've gravitated towards, or champion resources to then implement it. But at the same time, I'm not above having to pitch in on our team and doing what's necessary to getting those things done. And so those are the things I would offer is, recognizing when you do need to do above and beyond, or all the different skills, but then at the same time, to be able to accelerate and get to that next level, to recognize what you're an expert at and really hone in on that.
Thank you. And I remember in I reached out to a broadcaster. Y'all may know her. Her name is Robin Roberts. And 1996, I decided I'm going to move to Atlanta because the Olympics are coming, and I'm going to be a journalist. And my dad said, "Do you know anybody down there?" And I was like, "I know 2 people." And I reached out to Robin Roberts, and I did not think she would, she's not going to read my email, And she emailed me back. And she said, I asked about Atlanta, is it a good place, And she wrote back, she said, "Rose, Atlanta is a good city. The key is to think about this," and I'm paraphrasing, but it pretty much went like this. There are a lot of people that can help you, but the key is to surround yourself with people who are willing to help you. And I have never forgotten that. And I tell so many young people that. And of course, I moved to Atlanta and I sold T-shirts. That's okay. You know, my dad was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm selling T-shirts." He's like, "Okay, all right, it's a pathway to being a journalist." And I remember my dad telling me, you should work in public radio. You should work for NPR. And I said, "Daddy, black people don't listen to NPR." And he said, "Well, I listen to it, and your uncle." I said, "Yeah, y'all the only two." And because, I listen to NPR, and my dad would play NPR in the car, and I'm like, "Really? Can we turn on Parliament Funkadelic or something?" And because I didn't hear a lot of stories about people like me. Now, NPR has come a long way. And then I got my first job working at WCLK, and I called my dad. I said, "Dad, I got a job as an entry-level producer at WCLK." And he's like, "What kind of station is that?" I said, "It's a public radio station." He's like, "What?" And I said, "It's NPR station." He's like, "Ah." And I have been in NPR. I'm now celebrating my 16th year at WABE. And I have been in public media since 1998. So Robin was right. One last question. We got about a minute for each one of you to answer this, and I think it's important because I think it's the answers for this audience. Through your lens, what does an ally in the workplace, if that's the word you want to use, what does an ally in the workplace look like for women or should look like for women? Who want to go first? Erica.
It looks like an educated person, right? I think that term ally is completely overused. People kind of throw it about, "I'm an ally.
Yeah.
I want to be an ally." You cannot be an ally if you don't understand the impediments of said group, right? So understanding the challenges that present themselves, as well as those opportunities, those areas, how you can assist, and as far as how you can become educated, right? It's interacting with people that you want to champion for, right? It's educating yourself. Google is your friend. I don't know if we have Googlers here. That was not a plug for anyone. But it really is, you can't just talk to one person. So if you want to be an ally for a woman, that does not mean you speak with one woman. All right, I know the problems of women and I'm an ally now, right? The conversation keeps going. So identifying different people to talk to understand the various viewpoints, and then understanding too, what does it look like so that you're able to help? So being a champion for a group, it looks different in different ways, right? So you may have let's say you're in a meeting and you've got women and maybe there's some mansplaining going on. You got a man over speaking someone. That woman, maybe that particular woman, being a champion for her means to stop everyone else so that she can speak. But maybe that woman doesn't, that's not what championing looks like for her. Maybe behind the scenes it's having a conversation. So that's why it's so important to have the continued conversations to really fully understand what does allyship look like, because it's not a one-size-fits-all approach, but it absolutely requires education.
Amy.
I would echo that, but I would add also recognizing that lived experience matters. And so everybody has a lived experience, and to try to come in to be a friend and ally, and recognizing that, then find commonality, and then to work on whatever, or championing something together. I think that's important.
Thank you. Alison.
And I think I'm trying to do this from the perspective of who you should look for in an ally. And I think it's clearly somebody who's got influence, and it's broad influence, and it's not just by their title, it's by their word and their presence. So somebody who has influence, and also somebody who knows something a little different than you know. So I wouldn't necessarily look for an ally who's in your department or in your chain or anything like that. Find somebody who's got a very different perspective about the workday, the organization, the people in the organization, and that will help you become more rounded and a better participant in overall conversations.
Veronica.
I would say a champion for whoever or whatever they would support would be someone who's willing to get in the mud with you. We see a lot of people who, I'm here for you, I support you, but when it's really time to get into action, they go ghost. So someone who's really has your back, supports you, and is willing to go toe to toe just as you would for whatever you believe in, say, or do.
Huiming, give you the last word.
I mean, those are great comments. I think the only thing I would add is probably we heard, Alison was talking about this influence.
Next time, can you put them on the back?
Right, she's fun. So it's not only the person who has influence, and I recognize that's very important, but also the diversity of it and the fact that you have the support from, in my work example, I'm part of merchandising, you get the business support, but you also get the technology support for the point that you wanted to convey, and you get the supply chain, you get the stores, and there's people who has diverse background that all support you, right? That, not to give the illusion, but it also is true that you're surprising yourself sometimes that, yes, we're on the right path, and then I think that will lead to a lot more adoption than overwhelmingly one department or one area of support.
All right. I'm just going to add one word. Listen. Just listen. That's all I'm going to say. Before I bring up Marty Rogers, I just want to thank Huiming, Veronica, Alison, Erica, Amy. Thank you all for being part of this conversation. Thank you so much. I was told earlier that Marty Rogers was the man. I don't know what that means, but here's the man.
I don't know if it's good to be the man on International Women's Day, but we'll have to figure that out. So first, another round of applause for Rose and this distinguished panel. We heard about sisterhood, we heard about allyhood, we heard about listening, to be without limits. We heard about folks that it's not just about, there's lots of folks that can help you, but how do you find the folks that will help you? And the importance of voice, of being reborn, and the courage to be reborn. And then the importance of supporting one another on the journey. So just an amazing, amazing panel and a great way to start International Women's Month and International Women's Day. International Women's Day is on March 8th. The theme this year is called Digital, which means how do you use technology and innovation for all and for equity for women and to be inclusive. And at Accenture, we have been supporting and part of International Women's Day and celebrating that for 19 years. And we have been, this year, for International Women's Month, we estimate that we'll have over 2,000 events across the globe that Accenture folks will participate in to celebrate women and the role of women. I was asked to talk today a little bit about our partnership with Goodwill and about some of the women who have inspired me on my journey. First, in terms of Goodwill, Keith is here. He asked all the folks from Goodwill to stand up. I can't underscore enough, and you'll get this when you go on a tour, which is immediately following my remarks, and I strongly encourage everyone to go on the tour. This facility and the people that work here, the magic is the folks that work here genuinely care and love the folks that come through the doors. And they develop them and they care for them and they transform and change lives. And so another round of applause for the folks from Goodwill. They've been not just a community partner internationally, nationally, and locally for Accenture, but they've also been a client of ours, and we've worked with them around strategy and around developing opportunity accelerators and sustainability accelerators. We've also started a new partnership in the metaverse with Goggles, trying to help formerly incarcerated folks get a jump on the interviewing process so that when they come out, they're more quickly able to get jobs. In terms of women that have inspired me. I want to give you 4 kind of really quickly, and I know I don't have much time, but I think it's important. The first is one of your panelists, as well as the preacher, as well as Gina and Cherry and so many of the Accenture women that are in this room. And for the parents, I just want you to know I already got the autograph because it's going to be worth something one day. So Veronica, just know that you inspire me, and thank you. The second person I wanted to tell you about really quickly, and a lot of folks up here talked about their mom, right? And I know this isn't Mother's Day, right? But it should feel like that on some level. And Accenture folks hear me tell stories all the time, but I rarely get a chance to talk about my mom. And the reason I want to tell you her story very briefly is I'm here on this stage because of her, right? My mom was in South Bend, Indiana, was the first person to integrate the Catholic schools there. She not only integrated the Catholic schools there, she graduated #1 in her class. But she was from a family of abject poverty. She couldn't go to college. She had to immediately go to work. She worked as a cleaner of buildings immediately after she graduated. She used to have to go into the buildings and hide because she didn't want any of her classmates to see her. And after she was working in this role, she went to school at night to learn how to learn typing and become a receptionist and eventually an executive assistant. Again, I am in this role today because of the sacrifices she had the courage to make. Third person I want to tell you about. I have been blessed with the opportunity to work for heroes and sheroes on the journey. And one of the people that coined that term of sheroes is one of my mentors, a woman by the name of Dr. Janetta Cole. And Dr. Cole was the president of Spelman, and she was the president of Bennett College, and she literally saved Bennett College. These are the 2 HBCUs that are exclusively for women. And Dr. Cole used this phrase of sheroes, right? And just simple change of language shows you how when growing up, we were all raised to think of heroes, not of sheroes, right? And this whole idea of the power to name is the power to define, and using words has power. And so I hope as we go forward, we talk more and more about not just our heroes, but our sheroes, and the folks that have lifted all of us up on the journey. And the final person I wanted to tell you about that has made me who I am and why I'm on this stage, I had the great privilege of working not only with Dr. Cole, but also with a woman of amazing grace by the name of Dr. Marion Wright Edelman. And Dr. Edelman was my boss, and I now serve on her board, but she was the world's leading children's advocate. And she was the first black woman lawyer in the state of Mississippi. And And she's had a number of books, and if you ever get a chance to read them, I highly recommend them. One of the best ones she did was Lanterns, but she also gives speeches and other things you can check out. But the thing I wanted to tell you about Dr. Edelman is that she was asked to go and fight for civil rights in the state of Mississippi by Medgar Evers. And Medgar was shot dead in his driveway several months after she arrived. And she stayed. And she stayed. And if you pause and you think about that courage, and you think about fighting for justice and fighting for dignity, right? And the color purple that you see represented here for International Women's Day, that stands for justice and for dignity. And if you think about somebody that has fought for that and to bend the arc of the moral universe for over 50 years, right? That's a powerful, powerful thing. Risking and being at the front, meaning that you're literally risking your life as part of that journey. She is fond of saying that service is the rent we pay for a living. Service is the rent we pay for a living. And the folks here at Goodwill, they pay that rent in full each and every day and each and every month. And we are all called and we are all challenged, regardless of our walk of life, our stage of life, to be of service to others. That is ultimately life's calling. And it's been a great honor and a privilege to be with all of you today. So service is the rent we pay for living. And with that, we're going to go see Goodwill in action and in service.
Okay, so as you go to the store and see the illustrious Veronica, only at Goodwill can you take a $5 good gift card and actually go get an outfit. So make sure you use this. I want to thank Amy, Erica, Alison, Veronica, Huiming, and Rose for a fantastic morning. Thank you all again. We're going to corral this group and go over and take a picture, but one thing I need your help on. So recently, I've been giving a lot of talks, and during the Q&A period, almost universally what comes up is I get questions about what can derail women in their careers, or what are holding women back in getting everything they deserve and so forth. And one of those things is the ability to negotiate your starting salary, your ongoing benefit package, your promotions, that sort of thing. So whenever I give these talks, then my email box gets filled up the next morning with folks saying, hey, look, can I call you? Can I come talk to you about that? So we're going to embark on an effort here at Goodwill where we want to give you those skills because it has lifelong implications if you get the job but start at a salary that's less than what you actually deserve. And women, unfortunately, collectively, not all, but collectively, believe that the employer, if they're loyal, if they do the right things, they'll take care of me. Sometimes they do, often they don't. And you can't leave that to chance. So we're going to embark on an effort to become the thought leader and how you go in, negotiate find out what your market value is, negotiate what you're worth, and continue to do that because it also harms you during promotions. Very often women, when you're asked to do a self-evaluation, you grade yourself lower than men do. And so where the evaluation talk begins is where you've started. So if you started at 3 to get you to a 4 on a scale of 1 to 5, that puts you at a disadvantage. Where if you start where you really may belong at that 4, 4.5, but you're thinking, I want to be humble, it has, again, lifelong, career-long implications. So we want to develop those skill sets, those negotiating techniques, and help you do that. But we may need some of you in the room to help us get there. So Jenny Taylor, who's the vice president of our career services here, she's going to help us put together this curriculum. So be on the lookout for these efforts. I'm going to be talking about it a little bit on my Keith Speaks. I do this little weekly minute-long session about different topic areas. But that's what we'll be focused on. So anybody interested in that? All right. With that, thank you, Ms. Rose, and the panel. If you all will please join me and who else? Winnifer, there she is, and Marty right there. Thank you all, and we'll be starting up the tour in just a moment.